Hey guys, today I'll be showing another restoration project I've been working on, and this video is for Kyle, who owns this beautiful little Multimoog. So Kyle just going to be going over it, showing you that everything's functioning here. For all you other guys that enjoy watching my videos, feel free to watch. I always enjoy you guys watching. I will add that this Multimoog is going to be a little bit different than my typical Multimoogs because I actually added some modifications to this one, which I'll be going over here later on. But so that it does some things that it didn't do from factory, and it's really great. I really like this modification. So anyways, I'll just tell you guys a little bit of what happened with this one. When I got it in, it was dead on arrival, no sound. I couldn't even get a click out of it. You know, typically you'll hit a key and you at least hear a pop or something. This one was dead. So the first thing I did was crack it open, hooked the scope up. I could see the oscillators were working, I could see the carrier wave for the keyboard was working, and I could see that the keys were tracking. So I knew all the oscillators and all that was working. What got interesting is that I could see that was working, the contours were working, I could see the VCA actually work. I put a signal on the VCA through a coupling capacitor. I could see it open and close and, you know, kill the signal on the output. So all that was working based off contour settings. So it was the filter that had died. And this is where it gets interesting, because what killed the filter is something I noticed after I fixed the filter. It was a bad amplifier in the filter, and so it just wasn't doing anything. It was just a dead circuit, and so it wouldn't pass audio. It was just, you know, it was just dead. But when I got looking at other things in the signal path, like I said, I could see the oscillators working. Somebody had put a really large capacitor in this thing for the bass mod. They put like a 100-volt cap. It was huge, massive. I have it laying around here somewhere. I can't remember where I put it. I'll show it to you guys. But it was a big old cap. And so at first I thought, well, maybe that cap killed it. Too high voltage, you know, the cap can build it with charge, throw out voltage, you know, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't that. What I noticed is when I got all that working, I could turn up the noise source. And the noise source would actually sit there and pulse. It would actually just pulse. And I could not figure that out for the life of me, because there's no reason for that to pulse unless there's a problem with a sample and hold, which is related to noise. It uses the noise source through an amplifier, and then it feeds a FET, and then the LFO switches this FET on and off, capturing certain moments of that noise. That's how sample and hold works in these things. But there's no relation between the LFO and the direct noise source. And what I could actually see is that even if you hook the oscillator up, I did some cutting on some old components before I removed them. I actually isolated the noise source from the LFO as well as the noise source from the audio chain, and I could hear the oscillator. So oscillator would come in, work to the filter. I'll show what I found here, and this took me a long time to figure this out. And what it was is actually not a component failure, it was actually a short on the board. So when I show you this, I'm going to just kind of show you, this all makes sense in the schematic here. So what we got the noise source, which is actually an IC based noise source. And so it comes out here, you can see your noise source control, which is that actual pot on the front interface. Then what you got is you got your sample and hold circuit right here. This is the sample and hold, so you can see that you have a relation to the noise source, and then you also have a relation to the LFO. So the LFO comes in here, comes up here through a coupling capacitor, goes through a diode, and then that pulses the amplifier on and off to turn on and off the FET, which is actually what samples certain stages of memory of that noise. That's how it works. It's very similar to like a keyboard circuit, like a CV memory circuit in the way that works. But there is no relation between the noise source and the LFO. It's all coupled. It's isolated by the coupling capacitor, and then it's not even related to the noise here. It's related to controlling the amplifier. But what I had on this particular unit, and like I say, this took me a little while to figure this one out because it was weird, is the LFO actually puts out 14. You can see it's a 14 volt. Negative 14 volt square wave, which is fed up to this coupling capacitor, goes through here. Well, this signal was getting on pin 3. So pin 3 was actually getting this big large 14 volt signal and it was running through the noise source. Luckily there's coupling capacitors here, so it actually did protect that chip. But this voltage was actually going through this resistor, so it's backfeeding this 4.7K resistor, going through the noise source and getting onto the actual audio path. Very, very strange. So it was a short from pin 3 to the LFO. And so I went through the whole thing. I actually ended up pulling the, I'm trying to look at this off the camera here, but I actually ended up pulling this whole pot. Let's see if I can remember where it is here. Yeah, I pulled this pot because I thought maybe it was something with this shorted inside this the source controller. You know, I have seen stuff like that where you lose a pin and have a short, but it wasn't there. It was actually back here off pin 1. Pin 1 to pin 3 was shorted, a dead short. And so there was no possible way for that to happen. You know, and if it was something that was in the board, I would imagine the factory would have caught this thing at the factory. So I got looking, and what I found, it took me forever to find it, but there's a little piece of wire, just a little, like, I don't know how it even got in there, but it was just a little piece of conductive wire, like just a braid off a wire, and it had laid down on the circuit board and had shorted these things together. And this is for, you know, this was like this when I got it in here, so I don't know how in the world that got in there, but that was the problem. And it took me a little while to figure that out. So I removed the wire and reconnected all the coupling capacitors, got everything back, and it was working fine. So that's what I found. And what was odd about, what really threw me off, and this is what put me onto this whole chase, was that I could actually see right here off the noise source, back here I could see that the square, I could see that pulse off the LFO even back here. So that let me know right away that there was something not right. And I thought it was a 3080 because it was getting really hot. Yeah, it was running hot. So I actually even pulled the chip and ran it without the chip, and I could still see that signal on pin 3. It was not the op amp. So very odd, very strange one. But it's all fixed now. But I wanted to bring that up for you guys because I know I wanted to explain that especially for Kyle, because I knew that was a really weird thing. It took some time to troubleshoot that. And like I say, that's probably what killed the filter, because it just had a high, you know, peak-to-peak voltage on the input of the audio path. You know, it's not good when you have 14 volts on stuff that it's only supposed to have, you know, very small voltage. And there's no coupling capacitor between. Well, I take that back. There's a coupling capacitor, so never mind that. The coupling capacitor for the noise source. So it was actually still going to the coupling capacitor for the noise. But you know, it's still a high peak voltage there. But that was the problem with it. That's what I found. So I took care of all the issues, put a new op amp in there, new 3080, you know, fixed the filter, got everything working like it's supposed to here, and then did a full calibration. But anyways, now since all that's said, I'll go over this unit. As you can see, it's really clean. It's really nice looking. Rebuilt the ribbon controller as well. It had some issues I didn't notice till getting close to calibration. I could switch the switch and I'd hear a drop in frequency, and it was caused by this ribbon. Had a problem. It had the actual metal contact had dropped. It had came unglued to the interface or the actual rubber underneath this tape, and so it was actually hanging down, always touching the carbon track. And so actually I fixed it, and then I wasn't really happy with the way it was responding, so I actually had an old broken ribbon controller. It had a bad carbon track, and I stole pieces off it and just built a new ribbon here. And so that's what I did here. Put a new piece of material on top, so it looks really nice and neat. Cleaned it up for you. I'll show you the back here too. You can also see another mod I did here for you. So I'll clean all this back up here for you. I also got rid of that sticker that was right here. And as you can see, that's your serial number, 1922. But what I added here is I had this little switch right here, and it's actually a base mod switch. So you can actually select if you want base mod on or off. And because it does give you a little bit lower end boost on the oscillators only, because the coupling capacitor you're actually changing is just for the oscillators, and it's before the filter. So it doesn't really affect your filter. It doesn't really affect, you know, your main output, but it does affect the oscillators. That's how it works. Anyways, that's the other mod. And then, of course, you can see the mods here. This is actually the ones that I really focused on. And really happy with these mods, which I'll be going over them. But let me put the camera on the tripod and I'll show you what this thing does. I know it's a lot of talking in this video, but just want to address all the stuff going on here and my findings, because it was a weird one. But anyways, as you can hear, this is both oscillators. As you can hear, all notes are working. As you can hear, your oscillator A control. So that's working correctly. Of course, your aftertouch, I also adjusted your aftertouch bar so it's got a good response. And of course, now you can hear. So you can hear your filter now work. Your envelope generator for your filter works. But as I always mention, guys, for those that are new to my videos, contour, when you hear me say the filter contour, is the same thing as the envelope generator. The envelope generator and contour are the same thing. It contours the shape of the filter's control. As you can hear. You also got this filter sustain switch, which changes how it responds. So when it's actually to the left, it don't release till you off a note. When it's to the right, it don't matter if I hold a note or not. Same thing for the loudness control. So your loudness control works as well. We'll open this filter back up. So you can hear it. Attack works. So that all works. I will show you, we'll go to just one oscillator. This is oscillator B. Your doubling works. That's just a divider, all that is. There's your oscillator A, combining them. You can change your wave shape. We'll actually go back here to B. Off the doubling. The same thing for control. So you hear how that works. You're also hearing the aftertouch, but I'll go through the aftertouch controls here. So this back up. Also, your noise source now works. As you can hear. So that's working. Your filter also, I should go back to your filter right quick because I didn't show you the full tones and all that. So we got the oscillators off, we'll go to full tone. Turn off the envelope generator. And I calibrated the filter as well. We'll go here. I'll show you that the modulation works by the wheel. Let's turn the oscillators back on. filter with LFM. That's it out of tone, that's in full. So as you can hear, that's working correctly. Full mode. And basically what the filter mode does, for those that don't understand, it changes the resistor network and makes the emphasis control either more responsive, and then when you go to tone, it actually just bypasses the pod altogether and puts it in maximum emphasis control. That's why that's called tone. Anyways, you can hear it sounds really good. Really great sound of synth. We'll open that filter back up. Turn down the loudness control release a little bit. But yeah, now we'll go over the actual modulation and stuff. I'll show you that the sample and hold works. We'll start with the actual modulation, not the force sensor or the aftertouch. So we'll start here, and as you can hear, there's your oscillator and filter. Oscillators there, and then you've also got this control here, which is actually changing the pulse width of oscillator B. Take off the doubling. Sample and hold works as well now, which that was part of the problem you had. That's the auto trigger. You've also got one that's just a manual trigger. So if you go to sample and hold keyboard, you'll still have sample and hold, but it's not going to hold the trigger. So you get something like this. As you can hear it. So you're going to manually trigger it, and you'll die out with the contour. So that's working correctly. That was the auto trigger. Your square wave works. That's your square wave. So that's working correctly. And then we've also got the, now we'll go to the aftertouch control. So right now we got on oscillator A and B as a modulation source or bend. We'll go to bend first. Turn it up so now you can hear, I can bend the notes with the aftertouch. And that's maximal. oscillators together. Then you got just the filter. Then we got oscillator sync, which we'll open this filter back up. What we also have is we have the pulse width modulation of oscillator A now instead of B with the aftertouch. So we can shape that. So go here. What's also cool though is that you can also make this thing modulate these signals. So it'll look at the LFO rate. Oscillators together. Now what you see me doing here, I'm just hitting just to release because I had a long release time on it. That's like the decay switch on the Multimoog, this last switch. So anyways, that's your primary stuff. I will show you the glide works here. Also your pitch ribbon now works. Your pitch ribbon works correctly now. And now what we're going to get into, actually, let me show you one more thing, the multi-trigger mode. This is another common failure area, but yours is still working. What that does, it allows you to re-trigger on notes lower than the key you're holding. Here it is in single. You hear how the contour dies out. Works like that, but that's your overall stuff. Now I'm going to go over the modifications I did. So what I did is I fixed up a input to oscillator A with a variable control, and it allows you to select the filter contour either positive or negative slope and feed it into oscillator A. This is a really nice touch, especially when you talk about oscillator sync. It gives you that classic sync based off contour settings. But you can also use it for effects, which I'm going to show you here. So let's make this thing sustain a little bit. So I'm going to bring up this knob. What's also cool is you can tune to it. Let me do this. Affect your modulation bus because it's not wired into your actual contour or to your modulation source controls. It's actually directly off the contour circuitry. So that's your wheel, and you still got your aftertouch. At the same time, your filter. You can set your filter for positive or negative still. It doesn't affect your modification here. But you got a wide range too, so that's just I've just matched the frequency. So that's max. Now that's not max. Here's max. What's cool though is you can actually detune this oscillator almost like it has an octave shelf now, because you can turn the envelope contour down for the filter. You hear the click because it's still actually looking at the contour. So you got the positive slope, but then you've also slipped the switch down, and now you've got the negative slope, or the inverted slope. And same thing, you match the frequency. These real classic kind of sounds, almost like a Keith Emerson kind of stuff going on. Of course, you can turn off the other oscillator. This is just oscillator A. You turn it on to 0. Just a little detuning effect too. So for that sense, it's really nice. It's a really nice addition because you can add a little bit more detail to how you want the oscillator A to work. What's really cool though is when you go to oscillator sync, that's when this thing really comes in. And this is actually the original idea from Kyle. The reason he wanted this modification was to give the sync that normal, that natural contoured sound like you get on a lot of other synths. So right now you can hear the oscillator sync. I actually still got modulation on the aftertouch. We'll go to a square wave. So that's about all you could do with it. You could either do that or you could just do a bend. That's about all the control you had over the oscillator sync originally, but now since you got this, you still got the aftertouch. What I did, I built a summing node to actually make this correspond with other controls of the synth. So you get this really nice. Once again, you can set your amount. Really cool addition there. That's the positive slope. You can go to the negative slope. That's just your oscillator A. So you hear that inverted. Whoops, camera timed out again on me. But anyways, as I was saying, you can hear that inverted and non-inverted. You hear an inverted and non-inverted control there. But that's the modification. We've also got the bass mode, which you may not even notice on camera. Let's go back to a normal setting here. Not the oscillators. So you can hear this. We'll see if you can notice it. There's with the bass mode. gets a little bit muddy, that's why I make a switch, because if you just have it in there all the time, your solos get really kind of muddy sounding because of that cow. So you can select if you want it in or out of circuit. But I can physically feel a change when I select the switch. My room will start vibrating at these lower notes, where when it's off, it don't vibrate as much. Anyways, that's the Multimoog. Just want to go over it for you, Kyle. Show you that everything's functioning. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. And Kyle, thanks for the business here. Really do appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do these mods to your Multimoog and get it back in good working order for you. But anyways, guys, thanks again, and there'll be more to come here very soon. Take care.